News Review, our weekly conversation about Africa in the Western press, and where we look at the stories as they unfold and put things into proper context. My name is Adesoji Iginla, and with me, as usual, is a comrade, broadcaster, a teacher, comrade Milton Allimadi.
Karibu.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, my brother.
Yes, in a very interesting week, not least what happened on Friday, which at some point we will talk about because it ties into one of our stories for today. You were saying?
No, I said sure.
Yeah.
Even though I'm going to have an interesting spin and an atypical spin on that. Yeah.
So the notion is we'll go to our first story, and that first story comes from the Daily Telegraph, and it's titled "The Vatican to Face Demands to Return Ethiopian Treasures Looted by Mussolini." Ethiopia wants to recover artifacts taken by Italians in the 1930s, including 300 Christian texts. The story is filed in by Craig Simpson, the arts editor. The Vatican will face demands to return Christian treasures looted from Ethiopia, the Telegraph can reveal. Ethiopia hopes to reclaim artifacts taken during the Italian fascist occupation that began in 1936, as well as items removed by the British militaries decades earlier. Okay. The Eastern African nation will bring a legal case against the Italian government. Officials in Addis Ababa want to recover 300 Ethiopian Orthodox Christian manuscripts held in the Vatican Library, amongst other items. The library is overseen by the Holy See, the governing body of the Catholic Church, led by Pope Francis. Your initial thoughts?
Well, I like the story, I like the story. This is something I think we've discussed in the past.
Yeah.
I'm a big, big fan of all these looted artifacts. I think what we discussed was probably the one in Benin. I think we discussed that in one of the early episodes. So every African region that lost artifacts, and they're now formed into these nation states whose boundaries were drawn by the Europeans, they should all lodge claims. I like it that they're doing individual claims. One proposal that I had made in an op-ed that I wrote a couple of years ago, I don't remember when now, was that they should do it collectively, and they should build a Pan-African museum, preferably in a place like Addis Ababa, because that's where the African Union headquarters is.
Okay.
And can you imagine how much money that all these famous museums in New York, in London, in Paris.
Yep.
I don't know which prominent German cities have major museums as well, but all of them, and of course Italian museums, are beneficiaries of looted artifacts.
Yep.
Very priceless items. And I think if they did it collectively and built one museum where all of this recovered, because of course, the ones they're going to be recovering are the best of the best.
Of course.
Because they stole the best of the best. And then you have this museum in Addis Ababa. That will be a major, major location for education, for recovering our history, but also very importantly, for revenue, you see?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of these types of stories, 100%.
Okay, so I'll continue. It says the push to reclaim the artifacts is part of an international campaign revealed by the Telegraph. In the UK, it will target the King's Royal Collection, the British Museum, and the British Army. Do you sense the paper here is saying if you allow one, then clearly we would also be in the firing line.
Absolutely, of course. And it's inevitable. It's already ongoing, actually.
Yeah,
I
okay.
know that France, I think it was last year, was it the year before, started returning some items to a couple of West African countries. And it's a process that cannot be reversed now.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
but can you imagine if they all put out like a joint statement? It would also help the collective individual campaigns, you know?
Okay. So we dive a little deeper. So efforts will be led by the Ethiopian Heritage Authority, a branch of the tourism ministry. Abeba Ayala Gela, its director, told the Telegraph in Addis Ababa that experts were drawing up inventories of the plundered artifacts held in Italy and the Vatican. And I'll just read one final piece. Italian forces, so this is just to underscore how the artifacts got to be in their possession. Italian forces invaded Ethiopia in 1935 under Benito Mussolini and subdued the Ethiopian Empire led by Haile Selassie, later considered a messianic figure in Rastafarianism. During the occupation, which ended in 1941, Ethiopian palaces, churches, and historical sites were plundered. Statues, murals, thrones, and crowns were transported to Italy. Some of these may have been in Mussolini's possession when he was captured and shot in 1945. Many were deposited in the former colonial museum in Rome. So it goes into detail as in, but there was another part here where it says, while Ethiopia was under Italian occupation, Enrico Cerulli, a local governor and scholar, amassed around 300 religious texts sacred to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Now, so the problem is, are they pointing fingers, or we're supposed to say, okay, that's 300 with Enrico, but we should also focus on what Mussolini also took? Because
Go ahead.
Because this article seems to be all over the place, which is one of the reasons why I brought it up for review. That, for one, it's acknowledging the fact that this stuff exists within the Italian state. But on one hand, it's a Mussolini has some, Enrico has some, the Vatican has some. Is it pointing fingers everywhere else but at England, because this newspaper is a UK-based publication? What are your thoughts?
Which is fine. I mean, you know, you can point anywhere. At the end of the day, we're going to come to your home as well, you know. And it's good that you're actually, in this article, it's pointing out all these prominent individuals and institutions. It's very good because now it makes the case much more solid for the Ethiopians. And but I would like to see even a bigger story that goes beyond that, because you can't just return the items. You see, there has to be damages assessed. So I want to see a much more sophisticated article that takes the narrative further. You can't come and steal my collections, right? Anything I own. And then at some point, whether it's you or your children or your grandchildren, return it to my, you know, descendants. And then that's it, just like that? Wait a minute. You know, it doesn't work that way. So we need to discuss the issue of reparations, number one. Number two, it cannot be, you know, divorced from the other crime that the Italians committed against the Ethiopians. When they invaded, they used mustard gas, you know? That was the, absolutely, and that's rarely discussed. And of course, tens of thousands of people were killed in the most painful way with mustard gas, which had been banned, by the way. But of course, Mussolini didn't care. So, because of how devastating it had been during World War I. So that also needs to be part of the destruction of Ethiopia. And of course, as you know, the reason why they invaded Ethiopia in particular was because Mussolini wanted to avenge the 1896 defeat at the Battle of Adwa, when Emperor Menelik II and Empress Taitu annihilated an invading Italian army led by General Oreste Baratieri. And yesterday, by the way, March 1 was the anniversary, 129th anniversary of the Battle of Adwa. As a result of that victory, Ethiopia was the only African country not colonized during the scramble for Africa by the European powers. It's a shame that this history is not widely sufficiently known in Africa and in the Pan-African global community. The Battle of Adwa, if anybody listening right now, go look it up. In fact, I wrote a dramatized version in a graphic book of the Battle of Adwa.
Adwa, yeah.
And it's called Adwa, Empress Taitu and Emperor Menelik in Love and War. And it's available on Amazon. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy with me. I have a draft
of the play.
Of a play. I'm doing a version of a play of the Battle of Adwa.
Have you finished it?
But I think we need to know, every young African needs to know the fact that we had a major victory against an invading European Italian army at a time when they said the propaganda they were spreading was that Europeans are superior and can never lose to an African army. So I'm shocked that every African country does not teach this history in the way it should be taught.
There's one final part I want to get your thoughts on, and I don't know why the place it got that centerpiece. It says legal case within 18 months, despite being named a war criminal, right, referring to Enrico Cerulli. He donated his collection to the Vatican in 1954, where it remains. It is understood that once an inventory of the collection is complete, Ethiopia will approach the Holy See with a request to return any looted artifacts. Italy will face a legal case based on the 1947 Treaty of Paris, which insisted that former fascist nation hands back cultural and religious treasures looted from Ethiopia within 18 months. So if that is already on the books, why do we now have to go to the Vatican? Surely the Vatican can take it upon itself to do that.
No, I don't mind the fact that, they will prepare an inventory, and then once these things are surrendered, they're going to compare it with the list that they draw up. Because if you don't do that, if they've been holding it illegally all this time, they're going to hide some, you see?
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to do an inventory. But you see, missing here is, so you're in defiance of a treaty, and you're telling me there should be no penalties for that? You just hand it over now? No, that's not enough. It's part of drawing this inventory. They need to talk to legal experts as well and assess the reparations and damages,
Okay.
Yes.
So, for those who want a copy of the book, can you tell us what the title of the book is again?
Yes, go to Amazon. It's Adwa, which of course is the name of the location where the battle was, ADWA, and then it's Adwa, Empress Taitu, Taytu, and Emperor, Menelik, Menelik, in Love and War. That is the title.
When did the battle take place itself? The battle?
March 1, 1896.
So we've just recently passed.
Yes, yesterday, 129th anniversary.
129 Absolutely. Years. Okay.
And what I liked the most was that here you have an empress, right? Clearly, this was not like, Antoinette, right? Not Marie Antoinette. She is on the front line, risking her life to preserve the independence of her nation. She was put in charge of the cannons. In those days they had cannons. Today they would call it artillery, right?
Artillery, yep.
In charge of that battalion. So this was a no-nonsense empress woman. In fact, it's widely believed it was upon her insistence that the Ethiopians decided to resolve this issue militarily, because she was notorious for saying no, no, no during negotiations. And her husband was more accommodating and liable to say yes, yes. You know.
So yeah, that's another leader that we probably have to look into
Absolutely.
much more. So speaking of legal matters, we for our next story we go to the Associated Press, and this is a story we've run before, but it's come to a legal conclusion for now. Obviously, it won't be appealed. I said for now. Let's just say it's come to a legal conclusion, but I want to get your thoughts on it. The news again comes from the AP. It's titled "Sports Highest Court Says Moroccan Soccer Shirts Depicting the Map of Disputed Area Was a Breach of the Rules." And the story is file named by Sam Metz. A court governing international soccer disputes has ruled that depicting the disputed Western Sahara as part of Morocco on club jerseys violates the rule against sports messaging. The Swiss Bay's Court of Arbitration for Sports, or CAS for short, on Wednesday upheld an appeal from Algeria Soccer Federation contesting the Confederation of African Football's April 2024 decision, allowing a northern Moroccan club to wear jerseys featuring the disputed map. And it goes further. The image of a map of Morocco, including Western Sahara, on the shirts of RS Berkane, depicts a message, a demonstration of propaganda or a political nature, as it represents the assertion of a territorial dispute that is contested and still unresolved as of today, the court panel ruled. And it goes further. Western Sahara, a phosphate-rich former Spanish colony, the size of the United Kingdom, is a territory claimed by both Morocco and the Polisario Front, a pro-independence movement that operates out of refugee camps in southern Algeria. A 1991 UN-brokered ceasefire established a mission to organize a referendum on the region's future, but the disagreement over voter eligibility has long stalled the process. Your initial thoughts?
Well, I mean, we are familiar with the whole issue of the
Western Sahara.
Well, the inhabitants themselves call it the Sahrawi Democratic Republic. And we're familiar with that issue. And the saddest thing is that Morocco itself, which had to fight for its independence from France, is now basically colonizing another African region.
Yes.
And of course, this is part of the propaganda, because had the Algerians accepted and not made a deal about that, it means you are now endorsing Morocco's illegal occupation of the Sahrawi people. So even though people might say, oh, this is just a sports story, it's beyond sports. So it's very important. And I'm glad they did the article. And obviously, the Confederation of African Football, the fact that they had no problem with the issue, it suggests to me that there's a much bigger story that has not been reported yet in terms of why would they do something like that. You know,
I think we'll find out as we go into the story. I'll continue. Okay. So it says the territorial dispute drives foreign policy for both Morocco and Algeria, which supports Polisario's claim. The two countries cut diplomatic ties in 2021 and have since fought over soccer jerseys, kaftan, tiles, and airspace. The soccer dispute originated last year when players for Morocco's RS Berkane had uniforms seized by Algeria authorities at the airport before the first leg of a semi-final against US Algeria. The Confederation of African Football, which organizes the continent's international football soccer competitions, denies Algeria's request to ban the shirts. And RS Berkane refused to wear replacement and the game did not go ahead. Later, US refused to play the second leg of the game in Algeria. The host wore the jersey. CAF awarded wins to RS Berkane by default. So here's the ruling, which will lend reason as to why that is the case. The ruling came as Morocco emerges as a political force in African soccer, preparing to host this year's African Cup of Nations and the 2030 World Cup, along with Spain and Portugal. Morocco Soccer Federation President Fawzi Leka is a key influence at CAF as a member of its executive committee and within FIFA, where he is also among the elected African members of the World Soccer ruling body. Lekja is also a past president of RS Berkane.
Okay, so what is missing from this story is whether there had been any attempt, or whether, in fact, this Berkane recused himself from any of the issues related to this dispute. So
Clearly
by not
not.
addressing it, whether there was an attempt to have him recuse himself, and then whether that was successful, or whether he refused, that's a very important part of the story. You know, it's almost like a lead for the story. Because to me, the other unaddressed and unanswered issue, which of course is much more difficult to find out, but it can be proven, was whether some money was paid to the Confederation of African Football to ignore this blatant violation. It's like, okay, so let's say Nigeria and one of its neighboring countries, let's say Nigeria and Cameroon, right?
Yep.
And you have a dispute over some territory, and it's unresolved. In fact, I think there is some dispute that Nigeria has.
The Bakassi Peninsula. Yes.
Okay, very good. So let's say now the Nigerian, club soccer team or national team draws a map that includes that region as Nigerian. Would that not be a major issue?
Of course it will be.
It's preposterous. So there's a bigger story as to why the Confederation of African Football did that. It could be beyond the fact that this guy is a member of the executive. You know, to me, what would make much more sense and much more credible to me is that some advantages were secured. Some consideration was made. Was it outright payment? Was it a bribe? Was it, you will give you this in return for that? Only that way would it make sense. Just the guy's presence alone is not sufficient.
Exactly. And could it also be because they're going to host the African Cup of Nations, the next edition of it?
So why were so much more money is available? So the other members of the executive, I find it difficult to believe that they just did that for no reason, without any incentive. Okay, that's what I'm saying. It's just my journalistic instincts,
So you think they were financially motivated?
I think there was sufficient reason for them to go along with that agenda. Since I have no proof, I can safely say it was worthwhile for them to go with that agenda.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been a long-running saga since.
It's serious. I think I wouldn't be shocked if there's a military, clash between these two countries eventually. Morocco is determined to steal that territory, and Algeria, because of its, history, the Pan-African leaning, anti-colonial, anti-imperialism, they're not going to back off as well. You see? Yeah. And now, as you know, they mentioned it in 1991, they were supposed to have the referendum, right?
Correct.
They never did because of Morocco's intransigence, you see?
Yeah.
And now we're talking, that's 34 years now.
Correct.
Right? Which means now, because Morocco has been packing people there, giving money to people in Morocco to relocate, giving them money, relocation, building them homes. So now they've completely polluted the electoral role. You see?
Role, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you now have a referendum, of course, you brought in all these new people.
We should not.
They're going to vote. One of the
Mm.
issues was that only those who were resident by that time, and of course their descendants, would be allowed to vote. And that's why Morocco does not want to accept that
Exactly.
clause. They want everybody who is there now to be eligible to vote, right?
I mean, there's also two other factors. One is Morocco in 1975, Christmas Day 1975, moved about 200,000 people across the border.
Yeah, think about it.
Into, yeah. So there is that one. And we also must not forget the war, the 2,700 mile long war that splits the country diagonally from north to south. So again, we have need I mention that that war was actually financed by the United States, but that's another issue. So at least we know the United States knows how to build walls now or finance walls anywhere they want to. So being that as it may, and now they've embedded themselves into football, and they know how important football is to the African continent, using that as a bargaining chip.
Yep, propaganda.
How do you, so how do you see this playing out in the long run in terms of, we know that there is this unfettered influence, as it were.
Right. I don't see, I hate to put it this way, but it might come down to military. Something has to change the playing field. Right now, the playing field is stacked in Morocco's favor. The only thing that Polisario has is they have the recognition of the African Union. But it's very different. It's not like, remember when Africa was fighting against apartheid in South Africa?
The focus was there.
The focus was there. Not only the focus, the resources, you see? They were backing diplomatic as well as military until the white minority regimes, all of them, eventually came down. Right now, the Polisario and the people of the Sahara, they only have diplomatic support from the African continent and many African countries. But there's no serious, apart from Nigeria, Algeria, of course. Algeria gives them support, the military training. And without Algeria, this issue would have died a long time ago.
True. Yeah, so kudos to Algeria for standing against imperialism while others have faltered. And so we've come to the halfway mark, and it's important that please do like, share, subscribe to the channel. We are growing. We hope to, extend the numbers. Now that legacy media has sort of filtered away its responsibility, as it were.
No, I'm glad you said that. This is it's a very serious issue because this new platform is the new legacy media, right? We have to guide the conversations that we need, serious conversation. And it's clear that the old school media, aka legacy, don't have the influence and the impact that they used to in the past, right? In the past, and that's, of course, is good and bad, right?
Okay.
In the past, legacy media could prevent a person like Donald Trump from being elected president of the United States, correct?
Correct, yeah.
But now, the other media spaces allow a candidate like that to be successful, a candidacy like that to be successful, and to be elected, because he can no longer be blocked, you see? So he goes to social media, he goes to X, right? Yeah. So whether legacy media denounces him in editorials, whether they promote another candidate, obviously was not successful, right?
Yeah.
So why am I saying all this? It shows you the importance of the new platform and the kind of impact that it can have. So that is why we need to build our presence and actions and activities on this new platform. We can actually make sure that they stop false distortion of the reality in Africa. So, for example, and let me just wrap up very quickly, the ongoing war of aggression in Eastern Congo, and we discussed this a few weeks ago, where the BBC keeps talking about M23, and neglects the fact that M23 is actually a proxy for Rwanda's very powerful, well-armed military, well armed by Israel, has the most sophisticated arms probably in the entire East African region, you see? So that is what Congo is facing. It's not facing M23. So for the BBC to leave that out of its headlines consistently, that shows an agenda.
True.
Aiding and abetting a war of aggression against the Congo. We discussed this issue a few weeks ago, and I mentioned how I've also discussed it on my radio show, WBI. But more importantly, I tweet. When I go on X and I tweet, and I question the BBC, why are you not including the fact that this is a Rwandan invasion or Rwandan-backed invasion in your headlines when other media have started doing that? You're aware that they're doing that, and yet by you making the choice not to do so, you're aiding and abetting aggression. And I would make sure that I would tag Secretary General of the UN, Guterres, on it, because he had already explicitly said publicly that Rwanda needs to withdraw. So if the UN Secretary General and the US administration, which,
already
by the way,
acknowledged.
had been supporting Kagame, are saying that, who are you at the BBC to leave that reference out unless you have a hidden agenda? You want this invasion to succeed. You want that part of Congo to be annexed, you see? So we can question that. We don't have to be a big media outlet like the New York Times or like CNN to have impact. Because I'm telling you, I did it consistently for 4 or 5 days. I noticed they started changing and put Rwanda back in the headline. And then sometimes they would not. The minute they don't do it, I go back and I say, the Ministry of Propaganda. The Ministry of Propaganda is back at it again. So you don't have to be, what I'm saying is you don't have to be humongous to have impact. So let's take advantage of this space, such as the one we're trying to create here. And that's why Adesoji is saying, support this space.
Thank you. And speaking of, Rwanda and Congo, we go to our next story, which comes from Radio France International. And it's titled, ICC prosecutor Karim Khan arrives in DRC amid escalating Eastern conflict. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, has arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo, his office announced on Tuesday, as the nation contends with a surge in the conflict in the east. The Rwanda-backed M23, I think that's how you wanted.
Yep, they're very explicit, not mincing words, you see?
Has in
And if
recent
you had read that to me without telling me where you're reading it from, I would have said, I don't know where it's from, but it's not from the BBC. I would have told you that.
Okay, so it says, the Rwandan-backed M23 has in recent weeks captured 2 major cities in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, securing a significant stronghold in the region since resuming its insurgency in late 2021. We're extremely concerned about the recent developments in Congo. We recognize that the situation, particularly in East, is critical, Khan told reporters upon his arrival in the capital, Kinshasa. The message must be conveyed unequivocally. No armed group, no armed forces, nor any ally of such groups or forces have a blank check, he stated. They must adhere to international humanitarian law, Khan added.
Okay, you know what? Read all that part again. That is some powerful stuff, man.
We're extremely concerned about recent developments in the Congo. We recognize that the situation, particularly in the East, is critical, Khan told reporters upon his arrival in the capital, Kinshasa. The message must be conveyed unequivocally. No armed group, no armed forces, nor any ally of any of such groups or
Wow,
forces have
that
a
is
blank
serious
check,
business.
he
That
stated.
that
They,
is serious business. Obviously, we know who he's referring to.
of
Ally
course, of
of an
course,
armed group and
of
saying no blank check. That's a very serious statement coming from the prosecutor of the ICC.
Yep.
And it's very serious coming from a prosecutor of the ICC who indicted the Prime Minister of Israel
Yep.
and the Minister of Defense of Israel.
You have
And
Galant.
as a result, the Prime Minister of Israel now cannot travel to some countries because there's been a warrant issued.
Yep.
If he is willing to do that to the Prime Minister of Israel, I mean, I don't know what to say to General Kagame, is what I'm saying. You see? No, think about it.
Yep. Yep.
I would be shocked if we don't see eventually some serious indictments, you know? Yeah.
And it's necessary, as we should come to find out in the course of reading this article, that
Absolutely. I mean,
just,
what they're doing to the civilian population in
it's
Congo,
abhorrent. It's abhorrent. It's abhorrent.
Yeah, that's the best word for it. Yeah, I agree
It's
with you.
abhorrent. It's abhorrent. And we're not talking starting in 1960s. This thing has been going on since 1831.
Absolutely.
the assault. It's just morally repugnant.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
there are people.
And you know what? I'm glad, though. I'm glad that I see some of the tide beginning to change, even on social media, because you know what? And that's part of the problem. We, our young people are so desperate for something that looks different. You see, so because of the destruction in Africa, the many corrupt military regimes or civilian regimes who have not delivered the level of desperation. So when people see Rwanda and they see Kagame and they see Kigali is clean,
pristine,
and everything looks efficiently operated and all that. So our people need heroes, you see? So compared to all the other misrulers, a lot of young people had embraced him as a hero. And I can understand exactly why.
Yeah.
But now I see even these young people in the social media exchanges now, that is now they're shifting away from that. They're now beginning to side with the victims of this war of aggression.
Yeah.
I find people now posting stuff like, oh, I never knew this about Kagame. I'm shocked. I thought this, but now I'm seeing this. So people are now drawing their own conclusions based on the information I saw there. So that's a very encouraging sign as well.
Yeah. So I'll continue. It says, according to UN experts, the M23 is supported by approximately 4,000 Rwandan soldiers. So effectively, that's saying that's the Rwanda army. Khan is set to meet with Congolese authorities, beginning with the head of state, Felix Tshisekedi, and members of the government. He's also held meetings with Bintou Keita, the special representative of the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres. Khan, has urged both sides to end the violence, particularly those responsible for crimes in North Kivu, where the M23 militia, backed by Rwanda, continues to fight the Congolese army and has seized a significant portion of the province. He has also said his mission aims to bring justice to bear in the ongoing crisis. How many generations of your children are going to be sacrificed? Khan said upon his arrival. Enough is enough. Too many people have interfered in the affairs of this country. And this has been the case for years.
I don't even need to listen to any more from this article. That article, for me, came to a conclusion when that quote, enough is enough. That could be the entire article right there. Enough is enough. So I'm glad it seems very clear that the prosecutor has taken a decisive stance now. So I hope that his official decision and action is going to match the statements that we're hearing from him right now. Yeah, I find it very, very encouraging. So let's wait and see what happens, you know.
I just finish the last part. He said, he added, the people of DRC are as precious as the people of Ukraine, the people of Israel or Palestine, and the girls and women of Afghanistan. Yeah,
bro,
that's
it's almost as if I wrote this in an editorial myself. You know, no, really, that's a type of editorial that I would write. So I have to say, you know, this is the rare instances where I'm completely satisfied with an article. You know,
wow,
speaking truth to power. You know, I think finally the plight of the Congolese people has touched the heart and the conscience of people that can make a difference, you know, for them. And if Tshisekedi survives this, if Congo does not make it a priority, really, to build an efficient professional armed force, he does not deserve to be president or even to finish his term.
Yeah, but
the number one priority of a national leader should be able to secure the safety of their citizens. What is Congo doing with the money? Yes, we know a lot of money is being stolen, but still, you are still in control of substantial parts of your country where revenue is being generated. So where is the money going? Are you even paying your soldiers on a timely basis? Are you giving them the weapons they need? Because to me, when I read articles that soldiers abandoned their weapons and just fled, soldiers not willing to defend their country. I mean, look, you know, we can discuss the reasons behind the war between Ukraine and Russia, right? It's not as simplistic as the Western propaganda media would want us to believe that Russia just woke up one day and Putin said, I feel like going to war today. No, there's some background in it, but that's not the, you know, what we're discussing now. But I wanted to draw the analogy. Ukraine stood up against a much more powerful army. True, since then they've gotten, you know, all the support, money that's dwarfed, you know, whatever even Russia can spend from NATO and from the United States. But had they abandoned immediately the way Congolese soldiers have been doing, they would not have even survived long enough to get that type of assistance. You see what I'm saying? So look at the difference, you see? So obviously those soldiers had something they thought was worthwhile sacrificing for. And that's what is completely missing in the Congo. I'm not denying that that army is facing an army which is much superiorly equipped because Rwanda works very closely with Israel. Correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But you're not showing me anything hopeful at the same time. You know, if you're holding the line, okay, you're being defeated, you're holding the line, then even other African countries have more incentive to come and support you because they see the sacrifice and commitment you're making. But very few African countries would want to send their force to bear the 100% brunt of the fighting. No. I think that's why many African countries have not been willing to come out very quickly to support them either. You see? Show me that you want to resist. Now I can come and help you.
Can support, yeah.
But you want me to come and do 100% of the resistance on your behalf? Come on now.
Okay. So we go for a story. It's your man. And this one comes from the Money paper, the Financial Times.
Yes.
And it leads, Donald Trump indicates he's ready to accept UK proposal for Chagos Island deal. Remarks are a significant win for Sir Keir Starmer as he visits the White House for talks over Ukraine.
Right.
So it's filed in by Lucy Fisher in London and George Parker in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump has signaled he will throw his support behind the Chagos Islands deal between the UK and the Mauritius in a significant win for Keir Starmer. Trump's comment came as he hosted the British Prime Minister at the White House on Thursday for bilateral talks over the future of Ukraine. I have seen the details of the Chagos Island deal, and it doesn't seem bad. How can you see details and you say it doesn't seem bad? But I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country, Trump said as he sat beside Keir Starmer, Starmer in the Oval Office. London had been braced for Trump's administration's verdict on the proposed agreement, which would involve the UK handing sovereignty of the Indian Ocean Territory to Mauritius in exchange for leasing back the archipelago's largest island. The island houses a crucial US-UK joint military base. Under the deal agreed by Mauritius, Britain will lease the atoll of Diego Garcia for an initial 99-year period with an option to extend it for another 40 years. What do you think of the initial idea that your man has, President Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has...
That's fine. You can say my man. I'm sure listeners understand. Okay, so let me give you, fair?
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard for you to figure this out.
Go on. Try me.
With Trump sitting with Starmer, at some point, something was shown and the media that was broadcasting it to the world. And at that moment, I knew that Starmer was going to get anything he had come to ask for. I didn't know that this was a part, this Chagos thing was being discussed,
Okay.
But now I'm not surprised. Something happened that told me that, this is a winning visit. Do you remember what that was?
Humor me. Tell me.
Sorry?
Share.
Oh, you don't remember? Okay, so let me give you a hint.
Okay.
Wow. Look at that signature. What a beautiful signature.
Oh God. Oh gosh. No.
Remember?
Remember? Yeah, the invitation to visit
the invitation for the royal banquet.
The moment you said the beautiful signature.
And he held it up like this. Look at that beautiful signature. Do you think that Starmer was not going to get whatever else he wanted? I'm sure Starmer came with a list of 10. And he asked for the 5, and he said it was going good. But after that signature, Starmer said, I'm going to ask for the other 5 as well on the list. You see? No, I'm not kidding. But now let me get to another serious point. And this is why I tell you that it's going to be very difficult for me to see how Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, survives. Right?
Yeah.
Because he has not only disappointed the United States, but he's disappointed 2 other key allies, which is the United Kingdom and France.
Yep.
And why do I say this?
Go on.
The UK and France, they know the deficiencies of the American president. Correct? They come there for their photo op. What did they say? Macron corrected Trump once.
Yep.
When Trump said, the Europeans are getting all their money back. Right?
Yeah.
And, Macron tapped gently. He said, very good, a very good tone, though, you see?
Yeah. Not strident.
Right. And he broke it down in components, how this assistance is being sent, correct?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And left it at that. And when Trump said, if you want to believe that, fine. He did not get it back and forth. He said, no, Mr. President. They should believe it because let me give you the breakdown, blah, blah, blah. He left it like that.
Mm.
They had a good meeting and probably resolved some things that they agreed upon, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Starmer knows the deficiencies of the American president. Did he air it out there in public?
No.
No.
There was no need to.
You have to be willing, if you're coming and asking for help, to take a little beating. Because we know the nature of this person you're dealing with.
Mm.
We expect you, who's coming for assistance, to be able to control your environment and be disciplined. Because even before the meeting, we know the person you're meeting with is not disciplined.
Okay.
And here's why I'm saying I'm disappointed. I am willing to guarantee, I can't say guarantee, I'm willing to bet, I can't even say bet, but I would not be shocked, comrade, if French intelligence briefed Zelensky, if British intelligence briefed Zelensky, and if Macron himself had a conversation with him before he went to meet Trump,
Okay.
and Starmer had a conversation with him before he went to meet Trump to prep him that this is the nature of this person. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is the bigger picture, right?
Don't get
So
sucked into.
should this happen, let it go. Let it go. But he could not let it go. And I'm not saying, I'm shocked that he could not. War is very stressful. You could see he's physically agitated, correct?
Yeah.
It's very stressful because, people are dying. You're not getting enough sleep. You're worried about how you're going to defend your territory, your cities. So I can understand why it may have been impossible for him to hold back the fire. But at the end of the day, it's like a mouse biting the toe of an elephant, And this one is an erratic elephant.
Very erratic. He could just start stomping.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to say I had a different kind of take. Remember in the beginning of the show, I said when we discuss this issue, my take is going to be a bit different, right? Because you know the nature of the person you're dealing with. I mean, once you started challenging them openly like that, how did you think it was going to end? Think about it. When the Ukrainian ambassador to Washington covered her head with her
face, you knew it was done.
She was not saying, oh, look at what Trump and J.D. Vance are saying. She was saying, oh, my president fell for the trap. He allowed himself to be lured. That's what she was saying, I'm sure. You see? So what Trump did, okay, beyond what he has done in the past, in the sense that the setting was the Oval Office, but he has behaved like that.
Right, in the Oval Office.
Listen, this is a guy who during the, I think it was the 2016, campaign.
Go on.
When he said, I forget which candidate, when he mentioned how ugly the guy's wife was. Think about that.
I think it's even Macron.
No. When they were contesting the Republican primaries, and he was one of his contestants in the Republican primaries.
It was Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz wives. Yeah, Ted's ID. Leave ID alone.
Imagine. And then he also said, one, and I think it's probably maybe Cruz again. Oh, yeah, he said, the guy's father was a terrorist or something.
Ted Cruz. Yeah, Ted Cruz.
Yeah, think about that. Think about that. And these are guys who now had to humble themselves and come back. Rubio is now his Secretary of State.
Yeah.
The same Rubio who called Putin a terrorist.
Yep.
and said we can't trust him, we can't do business with him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how can you think that you, Zelensky, is exceptional and there are going to be special rules for you? You see? I'm just being realist. Everybody's saying the obvious. Every commentator out there saying the obvious. This is abysmal behavior by Trump and Vance.
Of course.
Shocking. Lambasting another president in public like that. No, but they're seeing it the wrong way. It is not like an Obama with the characteristics and character of Obama suddenly flipping out and doing something like that. That would be shocking, correct?
Yeah, yeah, correct.
Trump has behaved that way throughout. It would have been shocking had he not responded the way he responded. After Zelensky broke it down to JD and said, "What kind of diplomacy are you talking about, JD?" From then on, oh, this was, artillery. And then JD just came back very personal. Isn't it true that you can't even recruit people into the army now? Are you denying that?
I imagine. I mean, I'm
as they say, it went ghetto, and I'm just glad that this is not happening under a black president, man. Because they would say, "Oh, this is that ghetto tendencies." So now you have Europeans acting ghetto, man.
I mean, for me, watching it, it was just, I was like, "Whoa, okay, interesting."
It was shocking, but at the same time, not shocking because this is Donald Trump. What? In fact, at one point, I would not have been shocked if you had pushed him hard off his chair, because at one time he actually tapped him a little bit.
Yeah.
Had it escalated any further, I wouldn't have been shocked. He pushed him very hard to the ground. Oh my God!
It's interesting times in the United States.
Okay,
really
actually, you know what? That's the best word. Interesting.
It's interesting times. It's
very interesting times. Very peculiar.
Still talking about the issue of narratives and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
He signed an executive order on, I think was it March the 1st? Yeah, March the 1st. Making English language the official language of the United States.
Yeah, they let him do that while the population keeps changing demographically. There's some things you can't stop. It's like trying to, to plug a leak in a dam, with your finger.
Spartan.
Absolutely, that's what he's doing.
Okay, I'll continue the story. And so it goes on. They're talking about a very long-term powerful lease. This is Trump talking. When you hear powerful and very strong in the same...
He likes those words, powerful, elegant, beautiful, nice,
Nice signature.
Yep.
About 140 years, actually. That's a long time. I think we're inclined to go along with your country, he added. It's a little bit early. We have to be given the details, but it doesn't sound bad. It goes on. However, UK Foreign Secretary said this week that Britain was extending an effective veto on the deal to Trump owing to its implication for US security.
Right.
The Diego Garcia base had been a launchpad for long-range US bomber aircraft in recent decades and considered a crucial listening post in the region. So opposition to it has come from the Republicans as usual. Senior Republican allies of Trump had been critical of the deal, hammered out between the UK and the Mauritius, citing concerns that it can bolster Chinese interest in the Indian Ocean. Opposition MPs, including Reform UK leader Nigel Farage, who is a friend of Trump, and Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch, had also heaped scorn on the deal, including its price tag of $9 billion for the initial 99-year lease.
Yeah, $9 billion over 100 years. That's chicken feed. That's not a lot of money. To have a platform for neocolonialism and imperialism.
Imperialism, yeah.
Come on now. Price to pay. Yeah, I think the deal will be sealed after the state banquet. You know,
Okay.
when he has this spectacular meal,
Oh,
and he
God.
has the photos, the photo with King Charles. You know, yeah, and the statement by your foreign secretary. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, we are giving him the veto. You know, they know how to work with this individual.
So
You placate him. You know,
it's like a
if that's what
child.
you want to get, of course, you know. Yeah.
So I mean, one
But actually, ironically,
go on.
I'm also not a supporter of this, you know, endless supply of weapons and money to Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know, this is a war that needs to come to an end. And it's a war that, even though Russia did launch the invasion, I agree with Noam Chomsky, who analyzed this very carefully. NATO kept extending and wanted to extend the boundaries all the way to Ukraine. And obviously that would be unacceptable to Russia. Just like it would be unacceptable back in the day when they still had the Warsaw Pact, you know?
Yes.
To extend that to Cuba. And of course, it nearly happened, and it nearly led to war.
Yeah, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Crisis, absolutely. Yeah. So for corporate media to leave that out of the story is very disingenuous, you know.
Exactly, which is some of the reasons why platforms like this are also very important.
100%.
Because they give you the context for whatever it is you're looking at. The news did not start when the news was written. There was something that led to the issue escalating.
Right, but they narrow in, comrade, on that fact which supports the agenda.
Yes.
Russia launched an invasion.
First of Crimea.
And they say an unprovoked invasion. You see?
Yeah.
And that unprovoked part is where we need to analyze. You see?
Okay. Let's do a bit of analysis here. I'll give you a take. One, when Reagan, famously told Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev is the last guy that led the entire USSR, as it's known, what's it called? The Union of
Soviet Socialist Republics, right?
Socialist Republics, yeah. So when he said to him that pull down that wall, and the guarantee is if you allow the reunification of Germany,
correct,
NATO would not pass the former Berlin Wall line.
There you go.
That line across the east. Fast forward, that happened. Berlin Wall came down in 1989. And subsequently in 1994, you had the first mutterings of an Eastern Bloc country seeking to join NATO, and it was Poland. Poland is essentially, boom, looking at Russia. And before you know it, the Baltic states, the three Baltic states in the north of Russia, your Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, were also seeking to join NATO.
Yep.
And then, Lord and behold, the revolution happened in Ukraine, and before you know it, they're on the doorstep. Of course, having reneged on that deal, and the first person that actually reneged on it was Clinton. And every other president since then has just increased the, quote unquote, the level of,
They kept shifting the line, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward
it's important. It's a big part of the story.
Yeah.
But leaving that out, it is completely disingenuous,
Fast forward, the 2014, the invasion of Crimea. Why the invasion of Crimea? Because NATO, wanting to pull in Ukraine, was effectively going to turn Russia into a landlocked country, because the Crimea used to hold the Black Sea Fleet, one of the most powerful navies in the world, pre the breakup of the Soviet Republic. And so that meant Russia would have to go round to come out to the sea. And there's no way anyone would want to do that.
Yeah.
And so they invaded Crimea. And in the same year, August, they invaded Donbass. And again, so all of this, if you put it into context, is pretty straightforward. But
absolutely. And it doesn't mean that you end up supporting the invasion.
You're not.
But now you understand the broader components of this conflict.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
So it has to come to an end. They should stop giving, Ukrainians billions and billions of dollars, because then it has no incentive to reach an accommodation, just like Israel has no incentive to reach an accommodation with the Palestinians, because it's so one-sided, getting billions and billions from the United States.
Yeah.
Regardless of the consequences of their actions, including the massacre of Palestinian people,
And again, it ties up all the stories we've run. The first one was basically stolen treasures, artifacts that depict who you are as a people have been taken away. And once your cultural memory has been stolen from you, you're effectively being robbed of a narrative. And then we ended up with Mr. Khan's assertion that, listen, enough is enough. People cannot continue to die like this,
Very powerful. I'm glad you brought up the story. In fact, I'm going to write a commentary, editorial, building up on that and saying, now we are waiting to see if your action will match the words,
Yeah. And so, yes, again, we've come to the end of another African News Review. And today's episode has been, as usual, informative, thanks to the good comrade and his analytical skills.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution in the selections, man. You've been picking some very excellent pieces to critique.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And so, again, we've come to the end of this week's episode, and I'll leave the final thoughts to Comrade.
As always, aluta continua. Let's love ourselves. Let's love Africa. Let's love African diaspora, wherever African people exist. We are the cradle of civilization and human life. And that is where, at the end of the day, everything shall return. We are going to provide the solutions because we started life, So it's incumbent upon us,
Yes.
So see you all next week.
See you all next week. And once again, thank you all for joining us. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe. Each one bring one. Until next week, it's goodbye for now. Yeah.
Whoa. Done. Let me run to my branch. So, okay. Comrade.
Yes, sir.
I know you are, you're tied up with school now, but whenever you have like vacation or what have you, school break, let us know and we'll